Dark Shadows, number 48, VTR 81766, air 83166. Take one.
My name is Victoria Winters. I can hardly remember how long I've been here at Collinwood, how long I've been exposed to the fears that seem to pulse through the halls of the great house on Widow's Hill. And now another day has begun, not only for me, but for a troubled boy. Morning, David. Are you ready for a hard day's schoolwork?
Where'd you get that?
I borrowed it from you last night.
I'm looking all over for it.
I'm sorry, I should have asked you for it, but I was so excited when I saw it. It's a wonderful drawing, David. Do you know that?
It's all right.
It's more than that. You're a very talented boy.
It's not that good.
It's good enough so that I'd like to show it to a real artist someday. How would you like that?
I suppose it would be all right. You probably don't even know any real artists.
Well, not yet, but I'm going to. So you take very good care of it, because I want to show it to him.
You got a smudge on it.
I did where?
Right there.
Oh, well, let me erase it.
No, I'll do it.
You know, you're right. No one should touch an artist's work but the artist himself.
There, that's better.
Much. All right, Michelangelo. Let's get down to history. You really are proud of it, aren't you?
Uh-huh.
So was your father when I showed it to him.
You showed it to my father?
Yes, last night. David, what's the matter? David! David, why did you do it?
Because I wanted to.
Why, just because I showed it to your father?
It was my drawing. I could do anything I wanted with it.
Well, maybe if I put some tape on the back...
Leave it alone. I don't want it anymore.
David, your father only looked at it. He didn't contaminate it.
I drew it for somebody else, not for him.
Well, he thought it was pretty wonderful.
I don't care what he thinks. I don't care what he thinks about anything.
All right, David. It's over. Now, let's get back to work.
I hate him.
David, sit down and let's do our history.
If I wanted him to see it, I would have shown him myself.
Well, I didn't know, and I'm sorry. What more can I say to you?
You had no right to steal it out of my room.
Now, that's being ridiculous. I borrowed it only to show it to your father.
You took it without asking, and that's the same as stealing. You told me that when I borrowed your letter.
That's not the same.
Sure it is. You have different rules for grown-ups and kids, sure.
Now, that's enough, David.
You're a thief, just like you called me, and I wish you'd go away and never come back.
I think we've had enough of this talk.
I bet you can't wait to tell Aunt Elizabeth what I said.
We're studying American history.
Just because Aunt Elizabeth told me to be nice to you doesn't mean I really like you.
David, will you sit down and do your work?
I hate you just like I hate him. Just because you got me in trouble doesn't mean I'm not going to forget. I'm never going to forget.
David, listen to me.
And if you want to tell Aunt Elizabeth, go ahead and tell her. I don't care.
Tell me what, David? What do you want Miss Winters to tell me, David? Is he being rude again?
No, we were discussing the American Revolution, and we had a disagreement.
I see. David, I hope you haven't forgotten our talk. I don't want any reports of trouble between you and Miss Winters. Is that clear?
Yes.
Well, then maybe you'd like to open this.
What is it?
It's for you. It was, I don't know, it was delivered from Collinsport.
It is for me?
Mm-hmm. Got your name on it, see? David Collins, Collinwood. What was that all about?
Oh, it wasn't anything important. I borrowed a drawing of his without asking him. I guess he has every right to be angry.
Wow.
What is it, David?
Isn't it a beauty? Have you ever seen anything like it?
I must say I haven't, but what is it?
It's a crystal ball, like the fortune tellers use. It's even got a stand on it.
It's great. Is there a note? Who's it from?
Let me see. Here it is. Now you can tell us all where we're going. Your friend Burke, from Mr. Devlin.
It's a strange present.
It's great. I have to go thank
Oh,
him.
not so fast, David.
Oh, I have to go thank him.
I'm not sure that you ought to keep that present. Mr. Devlin isn't really a friend of our family.
I don't care. He's a friend of mine, and he sent it to me, and it's mine.
I know that, David, but
Please, Aunt Elizabeth. He sent it to me. Please don't make me send it back. It's not fair.
no, I guess it isn't. All right, go make your phone call. It's too bad
What, Mrs. Stoddard?
that David should be so fond of a man who hates his father.
That's right, Burke. It just came. And thank you very much. Of course I know what it is. You bet I will. I'll look into it real hard, and I'll tell you what I see. Anytime it's important, okay? Burke, I made a drawing for you, and then something happened to it. Well, it tore. Of this house, Collinwood. I'll make another one. Only this time I'll hide it until I can give it to you. You promise? Okay. Bye.
Hi, David.
Hi. You want to see what I just got?
Sure. Is your Aunt Elizabeth around?
I think she's upstairs. But you can't guess what it is.
It's the biggest marble in the world, right?
A crystal ball. Haven't you ever seen one? You look into it and you can tell the future.
Oh, it's just what you need in this house.
I can have a lot of fun with this. I bet you never had one when you were a kid.
No, but I had some other things.
Better than this?
I guess not. Why don't you go tell your Aunt Elizabeth I'm here?
I thought you only come here to see Carolyn.
No, not this time.
I bet she never had a crystal ball either.
No. All she ever had was this old, dark, damp house. I hope you grow up with a little more than that.
I thought I heard the door.
Hello, Mrs. Stoddard.
Joe, what are you doing here at this time of
Well,
day?
Mr. Collins sent me with some papers for you to sign.
What are they?
Contracts. He said they had to be in the mail today.
Oh, go inside, Joe. Did you thank Mr. Devlin?
Uh-huh.
Well, then put away your toy and get back upstairs to your studies.
It isn't a toy.
Let me see what you have.
Yes, ma'am. I thought I'd take them right from here to the post office.
You don't usually attend to these matters, Joe. Why didn't Mr. Malloy bring them as he always does?
Oh, didn't you know?
No, what?
Well, Mr. Malloy hasn't been in at all today.
Well, why not?
I don't know.
Well, didn't he phone?
No, I don't think so. I thought maybe you would know what had happened to him.
What makes you think something's happened to him?
Oh, well, that was just a word, Mrs. Stoddard.
Oh, I better phone him.
He's not home. I stopped by there.
When?
On my way here, I saw Mrs. Johnson. That's his housekeeper. She said she hadn't seen him since about 10:30 last night.
Oh, but that's impossible. She fixes his breakfast every morning. When did she last see Mr. Malloy?
Well, the way she told me, Mr. Malloy came home about 10 o'clock last night and had some supper.
Yes.
Then at about 10:30, he received a telephone call. Right after that, Mrs. Johnson had to leave. She was going to spend the night with her daughter. But Mr. Malloy was still there when she left.
What happened this morning?
Well, she came back to the house, around 6:30 to fix his breakfast. She waited for him, but he didn't come down. So she went on upstairs to look. He wasn't there. She said it looked like his bed hadn't even been slept in.
He must have left sometime between 10:30 and 11.
Oh, why do you say that?
Oh, I tried to reach him shortly after 11. I tried several times, but there was no answer. Did Mrs. Johnson know who the phone call was from?
No. All she did say was that Mr. Malloy seemed, very upset. You don't suppose something really did happen to him, do you?
I don't know, Joe. I don't know. Yes, I know Mrs. Johnson. Joe's with me now. Well, I was wondering if Mr. Malloy said anything about visiting friends or his cousins. I see. Well, no, I can't check with them. They have no phone. Well, Mrs. Johnson, if you hear anything, please call me immediately. Yes. Thank you. Goodbye. Still no word of him. Oh, I hope nothing's gone wrong.
Excuse me, Mrs. Stoddard.
Yes, Miss Winters?
Have you seen David?
I sent him upstairs a few minutes ago.
He never came up.
Maybe we ought to check the hospitals. Mr. Malloy could be hurt. Joe, when you go into town, inquire around and see if anyone has seen Mr. Malloy since last night.
All right.
Man just doesn't vanish into thin air.
He was here last night.
In this house? What time was that?
Oh, a little bit before 10. He came to see Mr. Collins.
Mr. Collins saw Mr. Malloy last night?
Yes.
But Mr. Collins said... Joe, I'll get to the contracts in a few minutes. Would you mind waiting outside?
Oh, not at all.
You said Mr. Malloy came here to see my brother about a little before 10 last night?
Yes.
Do you know what he came to see him about?
No. I was on my way upstairs when I heard someone at the door, and it was Mr. Malloy. He did seem very upset.
In what way?
Has something happened to him?
I don't know. Upset in what way? What did he say?
Well, he was very anxious to see Mr. Collins, and when I said he was busy, he said that I'd better go and disturb him or he would. And he seemed very distraught.
Well, why didn't you mention this before?
Well, I didn't think it was any of my business.
Well, did you tell Mr. Collins Mr. Malloy was here?
No, because just at that moment he came out of the living room and he saw Mr. Malloy, and he asked him to come back in here, and then he closed the door.
You didn't hear what they were talking about?
Well, I did hear... Mrs. Stoddard, I don't want
Miss
Mr.
Winters,
Collins...
if it will put your mind at ease, I intend to discuss this matter with my brother.
Well, as they were going in, before Mr. Collins had shut the door, Mr. Malloy said something about coming to extend an invitation. Mr. Collins seemed to know what he was talking about, and he was furious at the idea.
Invitation to what?
Some kind of meeting. That's all I know. Mrs. Stoddard, hasn't Mr. Malloy ever gone off before?
No. This is the first time.
Your time is up. The crystal ball has spoken.
David, don't creep up behind me like that. Not in this house. Aren't you supposed to be studying?
Who likes to do schoolwork anyway?
Well, it's not what we like to do. It's what we have to do. Hey, listen, do you know if Carolyn is home?
Carolyn. Let me see. She went into town.
See if you can find out where Bill Malloy went while you're at it.
What happened to him?
Nobody knows. He just disappeared.
Where to?
Well, if we knew where he disappeared to, we wouldn't say that he had disappeared, would we? You know, I think that crystal ball of yours is a fake.
It is not.
Well, then why can't it tell us where to find Mr. Malloy?
It can. It tells other things,
David,
too.
you're a phony.
I am not. You think you're going to marry Carolyn, don't you?
Well, sure.
But you're not. You're never going to marry her. Never. Crystal Ball told me.
It did? Did it tell you who she would marry?
Yes, and it never lies. She's going to marry a friend of mine.
Ah, no kidding. What's your friend's name?
Burke Devlin.
Thank you very much, Miss Winters. You've been more helpful than you know.
I'm sure that nothing's happened to him.
Oh, I hope not. Joe, if you'll come inside, now I'll sign those contracts.
Okay. Your student is back upstairs.
Oh, good.
And Vicky, give him a swat for me, will you?
Joe, after you mail these, you will make inquiries about Mr. Malloy for me, won't you?
Yes, ma'am.
And if you hear anything, phone me at once.
Of course.
Thank you, Joe. Goodbye.
Goodbye, Mrs. Stoddard.
I'd like to speak to Mr. Collins, please. Well, then cut in. This is his sister, and it's important. Hello, Roger? I'd like to see you at once. I don't care what you're doing at the moment. This is more important. All right. Well, didn't you tell me you hadn't seen Bill Malloy since early yesterday afternoon? Well, I've just learned differently, and I'd like an explanation from you. No, I have no intention of discussing it on the telephone. I want you here and now.
David, stop playing with that thing or you'll never get through with your lesson.
I want to see what's going to happen.
Well, you won't learn a thing. That's what's going to happen. Now, come on and sit down. I want you to do these math problems.
Everybody's wondering about Mr. Malloy, aren't they?
We're doing math.
When did he disappear?
Last night. Now, come on, David.
I bet nobody really knows what happened to him.
I don't think anything happened to him. He probably had some sort of emergency and had to leave town unexpectedly. Now, come on and finish that.
If they would ask me, I could tell them.
All right, David. Go and look in your crystal ball and tell me where Mr. Malloy is, and then let's get this finished.
I don't have to look. I looked already. He's dead.
David, that's a terrible thing to say.
And that's not all. It told me something else. He was killed by someone.
David, stop it.
And do you want to know who he was killed by? I'll bet you do.
All right, tell me.
My father.
The Monroes is the big adventure about 5 youngsters who set out on their own to build a home on the wild Wyoming frontier. Advance premiere 1 week from tonight in color on ABC. Dark Shadows is a Dan Curtis production.